Hello my friend, welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Maria or Teacher Maria and this is Nerdybug's Teacher Corner. This is the little corner of the internet where we talk about teaching preschool, about life, and about mindset. So if that's something that's interesting to you, consider subscribing. Today we're going to be talking about my top tips for teaching 3 and 4-year-old students. So I have a few years experience teaching 3 and 4-year-old students in the classroom, and the things that I'm going to share with you today are stuff that I picked up throughout the years. But I have a favor to ask from you. If you also have tips that you want to share with me, please share them in the comment section below so that I can also learn from you as you're learning from me. Alright? So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so my first tip is to keep activities short and sweet. I'm sure it's not new knowledge to you that kids don't really have a very long attention span. I actually heard somewhere that a good way to think of it is to think of the age of the child and then multiply it by 2. So for example, if you're teaching a 3-year-old child, then more or less his or her attention span is 6 minutes. So my tip for you is to create more activities for you to do in class, but to keep each activity pretty short. I think it's better for you to keep the activity short and end on a high than if you prolong it too much and then kind of lose the children's energy along the way. And then it's kind of a waste of what would have been a really good activity just because you tried to prolong it too much. So yeah, keep your activity short, end on a high, and then wrap up the game and transition into the next activity. Tip number 2 is to be present and to feel the energy of the room or the Zoom meeting call. So what I mean by this is sometimes we have to let go of the objectives and goals that we set for ourselves for that day and to try to be present with our students. So ask yourself questions like, are the kids ready to learn? Are they in a good mood? Are they feeling well? Are they sad? Are they angry? Have they mastered previous lessons? Or are they showing you signs that they're still confused because they didn't really understand the previous lessons and so this lesson isn't making sense to them? These are things that you can catch on if you're being present with the students. So let's just say that your student is showing signs that he or she is feeling sad. If you just push through because you really want to get that lesson, you really want to do that activity with them and it has to be done today, and you're not really addressing what your student is feeling, then it's very likely that that student won't even get the full benefit of that really good activity that you prepared for them. Another thing that still relates to this is sometimes I feel like because we're so focused on the activities that we have to do for that day, we miss out on spontaneous opportunities to bond with our students. So let's say, for example, your child made a joke in class and his classmates are kind of bouncing off of the joke and you're having a good time. But then you're like, oh no, I have to get that activity done with, and if I don't cut them off, we're not going to be able to do it. Ask yourself if in that moment it's more valuable for you to actually cut them off and proceed with your activity, which sometimes is needed, or if maybe you just want to indulge in that for a while and let them have a good laugh, let them enjoy the class. Not every moment in the classroom has to be academic. And these moments of just laughing with your students or addressing something that you think that they feel or really just being present with your students will make a difference, will strengthen your bond with your students, will build the rapport that you have with them. And honestly, not only is this just good in itself, but when you have strong rapport with your students, it's actually easier for you to teach them. Which brings me very nicely into the next tip, which is to be flexible. Now, I don't know how they do it in your school, but in our school, it's basically one teacher for one class. And that teacher handles most, if not all, of the subjects that the students learn, right? So what I like about that is that it gives the teacher flexibility to decide how she's going to organize her week. And so the way I would do it, for example, instead of focusing so much on what has to be done every single day, I focus on the goals that need to be achieved within that week. So we still have a schedule that sort of guides you. So for example, for us, it was Monday, Tuesday was phonics, Wednesday, Thursday, math, and then Friday was Chinese and physical education. And so you still kind of use that as your guide, but you can still be flexible and say, for example, if your student needs more attention with phonics, then on Wednesday, even if you're supposed to be doing a math activity, you can still do an enrichment for phonics. And in relation to my previous tip, that way when you have those spontaneous moments with your students, you know that you still have that room to be flexible within your schedule. Okay, and then my next tip is to have fun. This is your chance to be a kid again and to just get to play and dance and enjoy yourself and get paid to do it, right? I always joke that my job, or that I get paid to make a fool out of myself. And honestly, I kind of mean it because I feel like I really enjoy being goofy and being silly with my students, and a lot of people wouldn't be willing to do the things that I do just to have a good class with my students. But I enjoy it. I have fun being silly. I have fun being goofy. I genuinely love when my students are laughing and I'm laughing with them. And it's one of my favorite parts of being a preschool teacher. And like, here's the thing, if you're teaching grade school or high school, you don't really get the chance to do this. But if you're teaching preschool and kindergarten, the beauty is you can make a fool out of yourself and your students are still gonna love you, or they might even love you more because of it. And when you're having fun, your kids are mirroring your energy, which is a tip I shared in this video and this video, so you might wanna check that out after. But they're mirroring your energy. They're having fun now because you're having fun, and now they're more engaged, they're enjoying the lesson, they're learning more, and it just makes such a big difference if you as a teacher are having fun with your lesson. So don't take yourself too seriously, have a sense of humor. My next tip is to simplify things when needed. A lot of times, I think we don't realize that 3-year-old students, particularly, or 4-year-old students, they don't know things because they haven't been exposed to it yet. It's not that they aren't smart enough to get it, it's just that they haven't been exposed to it. One example that I always like to use to get this point across is how I teach my 3-year-old students to wash their hands during the first weeks of school. So normally we would think that if we're telling a child to wash their hands and we just say, wash your hands, they can get it. Because to us it's common sense. But for a 3-year-old student, you have to tell them, okay, open the faucet, wet your hands, close the faucet when you get soap. Rub your hands together, make sure that you get the dirt off. Open the faucet again, rinse your hands, and make sure you close the faucet. You literally have to tell them every step of the way. And it's not that your kids aren't smart enough, it's just that if they've never washed their hands by themselves, they just don't know how to do it. So when needed, don't feel frustrated if they don't understand things, and just simplify it for them so that they can understand you. But that does bring me to the next thing, which is that it's not that we have to treat our students like babies and just make everything super easy for them. In fact, I really believe in challenging our students when it's appropriate. I like exposing my students to big picture things like taking care of the environment, or talking about our emotions, or talking about different ways that they can be better people, or even using bigger vocabulary with them and teaching them that vocabulary. Those are things that I like to do. The way I like to think of it is I like to give my students bonus knowledge or bonus information. So these are things that aren't necessarily part of the objectives that we have in our curriculum, but it's just bonus information, bonus knowledge that I want to expose them to. So for example, where I live, floods are pretty common, and I like to teach my students what floods are and why they happen. And it's not a concept that most 3-year-olds would know, but I like to expose them to it while explaining it in a way that they understand. So for example, the way I would do it is I would sort of draw it for them, where I would say, okay, so usually when it rains, the water from the rain goes into the drain. But sometimes when we make our city dirty and there's too much trash in the floor, the drains get covered and the water can't go through. So now it creates a flood. Or for example, usually when there are a lot of trees, the trees like to drink the water. And so when it rains, the trees drink that water and it doesn't go down. But if we cut all the trees off, if we get rid of all the trees when it rains, there's nothing anymore to drink the water. So now it goes down into the ground. And since the drains are covered with trash, they can't go into the drain, and now the water's going higher and higher, and it's creating a flood. And when you say it in that kind of way, the kids understand it. So you're challenging them, you're giving them more knowledge, and you'd be surprised with just how much a 3-year-old student and a 4-year-old student can understand and can learn if you just explain it to them in a way that is actually easy for them to absorb. Alright, and then my last tip is to involve your students as much as possible. You can involve your students in decision making. So for example, when I have class, I like to prepare 2 activities and I let them choose. Do you want to play this game or do you want to play that game? Or for example, I'll say, what song do you want to dance today? And then I let them pick. Why this is important is it gives kids a sense of ownership over what you're doing in class. It's something that they chose to do, not just what teacher wants them to do. Another way that you can involve them is by making activities as interactive as possible. For example, if you're telling a story, instead of just you telling the story and them just purely listening, you can make them part of the storytelling. So one way that you can do that is by creating props and letting them actually touch the props while you're telling the story. Another way is you can make them move. So for example, if let's just say the person in the story is going away, running away, you can ask them, okay guys, let's stand up and pretend to run away, stop. Okay, sit down. Let's continue the story. And you can make them move along like that, or you can let them touch the book. So for example, if you're telling a story and then there's a dog, you put the book close to them and say, can you touch, where's the dog? Another example for how you can do this is playing a game that I call dance, freeze, and read. So it's really just how it sounds. Basically, you ask them to dance. When the music stops, they freeze, and you show them something that they have to read. It could be a letter. If they're starting CBC words, can be CBC words, anything. The point is that you're getting them moving with the lesson, as a part of the lesson. Because here's the thing, kids are gonna wanna move whether you're asking them to move or not, right? So you might as well use that energy as a part of your lesson instead of you just asking them to sit down, you doing all the talking, and them moving in ways that may not be so favorable to your lesson. Alright, those are my 7 tips for teaching 3 and 4-year-old students. You can apply these tips if you're teaching in the classroom. You can also apply these tips if you're teaching virtually like I am. If you learned something from this video, you know what to do. And don't forget to share your tips with me in the comment section below. Again, I have 2 other videos here that you can check out after this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Is it too loud? Yes? Yes? You can apply these students in the